Debbie, your microphone is on mute. We're streaming live on YouTube as well. So, folks, we're going to get started in just a minute, okay? We're just setting up. Give us one more minute. All right, I think we have a few participants here joining, and we have Dr. Julie. So today, so let me introduce myself real quick. I'm D. Sharma. I'm one of the co-founders of Meditation Live. And we have today Dr. Julie. We actually have a new subject we're talking to Dr. Julie about today. It's about mindful eating. So Dr. Julie, a quick introduction on you, and then we'll get straight into the panel today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Julie Rosenberg. I'm a physician and also an avid practitioner of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. And today we'll talk about one of my favorite topics, which is mindful eating. And, I just wanted to preface this saying that we have a real obesity epidemic, of course, in the United States and in many other countries. But in the United States, it's extremely prevalent, with over 70% of folks being overweight or obese. And one of the solutions to this, I believe, without dieting, and let me underline that and say it again, without dieting, is mindful eating. So I hope that folks enjoy our session today and that you will take a few moments with your next meal to practice mindful eating.
Thank you for that introduction. And also to remind everybody, this is an interactive class. So if you have any questions around your own eating habits and you want to ask Dr. Julie, just type the question in the Q&A box, or you can chat with us as well. We're also live on YouTube. For those who are watching on YouTube, you cannot ask questions on YouTube, so you have to download the app, go to Meditation Live, download the app, and then engage with myself and Dr. Julie. The last thing I'll say is, Dr. Julie, you did a course on mindful eating that is now in the app. Could you maybe talk about, let's start with that, maybe talk about what is the objective of that class that is on the on-demand on the app?
Right. Well, I hope everyone will take a look at the course. And basically the purpose of it is, and it's brief, the purpose of it is to really define mindful eating and to share with individuals what the value of mindful eating is and how we might come to a mindful eating practice in our own lives. And like I said, it's short, it is an audio course only. And I believe, though, although brief, we can really have some informed changes in the way we approach our eating throughout the day by paying attention to mindfulness and our eating habits. And the course, again, is designed to help you do that.
Yeah, and I listened to the course last night, I think, and I'm not going to give in to actually what's in the course because I would love the folks to listen to the course themselves. But I will say this, then once you listen to the course, you may not be wanting to eat popcorns while watching a movie. let me just leave that in there. So what is mindful eating? And you talk about, it takes a while to get into mindful eating. So maybe just let's talk about what is it in basics.
Well, so mindful eating is really based on the principles of mindfulness. And when we practice mindfulness, we want to bring our full attention and awareness to the present moment without any judgment. And that idea of without judgment is very important. So if we extrapolate mindfulness to mindful eating, basically this is an eating habit or pattern that actually brings mindfulness to your food choices and to your experience of eating. So Dee, I'm sure if you're like me, let me give an example of mindless eating. When I work sometimes, one of my go-to foods is pretzels, and I really like pretzels. If I'm mindless about it, I'll grab a handful of pretzels and I'll do some work and this and that, and I might grab another handful of pretzels, and I have no idea at the end of the day how many pretzels I actually ate, because I'm not being mindful. I'm not being thoughtful about it. I'm grabbing it and eating it. And that can add to our caloric load because we don't even pay attention. And I don't know if you have a similar example, Dee, but that's so common for all of us. Just grab and go, grab and go.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm going to detour here for a second. My first mindful experience was with wine when I went to Napa Valley, and you do the wine tasting course where they mindfully teach you how to smell wine, how to sniff it. But we don't do that to every food we eat. We don't do that to where our hands are grabbing snacks and all that. Like, we do it only selectively. And it's taken me a long time to be more mindful with my eating habits, Dr. Julian. I don't think I'm still there, where you are, but I've realized there's a correlation to mindful eating and being healthy. Do you think there's a correlation to mindful eating and weight management?
Yes, I mean, I think that, so much of this is actually scientifically driven, which really helps me as a medical professional to be able to promote it and to offer it. So when we eat mindfully, we pay attention. We actually pay attention to how quickly we eat, to what we eat. And we also typically will eat more slowly so we can digest our food better and we can modulate how much we're eating. So, with that, when we're really paying attention, our tendency to overeat, to indulge, is not as great because we're actually paying attention to what we're doing. And if we do this throughout the day, for any meals and snacks that we may have, if we actually pay attention to the food instead of addressing it mindlessly, as I gave with the pretzel example, and you gave earlier with maybe we don't want to eat popcorn, that is a real advantage, I think, for weight management, but also for our enjoyment of our meals. I think so much of our lives are so busy now that we just don't pay attention. We grab and go, we eat on the run, we eat in the car. So this is a way of refining our eating habits to allow us to pay attention, to enjoy more, and to modulate how much we're eating.
That's very well said. And for those, we've got a bunch of folks listening to this live class today. Please feel free to ask any question to Dr. Julie around your eating habits, what improvements you may be looking for. And if you want to talk to her directly, you can also raise your hand and we'll turn on your microphone and you can actually have a dialogue directly with her. One of the things, Dr. Julie, I was thinking as we were getting ready for this class was, is there a relation between depression or folks who are under stress or a bit depressed and not mindful eating, or is mindful eating a way to relieve prolonged stress? Is there a correlation?
Well, I'd say, Dia, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I might leave depression out of this, but I certainly can address stress, especially the stress, that we feel in the workplace and in our busy lives. And it is a way to help manage the stress. And I would suggest that it's a way twofold. Number one, part of the stress that we experience, we actually put on ourselves by the busyness of our lives. There are 1,446 minutes in a day. We cannot be busy every single minute throughout the day. And so if we just take the time to slow down during our meals, that in and of itself will give us a break that we need and a break from the stress, some of which, again, we put on ourselves by eating at our desk, grabbing and going, and all the things that we've been talking about. The other thing, again, that can be stress related is so many people have stress eating habits. And while I can't say, of course, that mindful eating in and of itself will fix that, I do think it's an answer to helping to manage some of that stress eating that so many of us have because we are paying better attention. And just paying attention will help to manage the how much we're eating, especially when it comes to a lot of those snacks and things like this.
And is that paying attention means also being in the present moment? You're, one with your food, it's getting to your mouth. Give us an example. If I had a bowl of oatmeal, so Lucy says she's eating oatmeal and she's ready to learn. So Lucy has a bowl of oatmeal. How would she eat mindfully now versus how she eats otherwise?
Well, let me just give an example. And Lucy, I'm glad you have some food with you because that's a good thing. So mindless eating is, Lucy is doing numerous things. Let's just use you as an example. You're eating your oatmeal, you're listening to this, and maybe you've got some papers on your desk and you're getting ready to rush out the door to another meeting, to give an example. So you're eating your oatmeal very, very quickly and you haven't paid attention to it per se. And oatmeal may not be the best example, but let's switch the dynamic of just eating the oatmeal to keep on this topic. So one way of mindful eating is not to do numerous things at once. So if you're eating your oatmeal and you're listening in on this class, of course, you're still doing 2 things at once, eating and listening, but you're not doing 5 things at once. It would be important to, just look at the oatmeal, smell the smell of the oatmeal, take it in if it's something that you enjoy. And just as you eat the oatmeal, to chew, to use your senses and to eat slowly so you can actually enjoy what you're eating, paying attention to it. So if we extrapolate that to a larger experience, such as a meal, typically when I go out to eat, especially when I'm traveling and I often eat alone, I would say that 95% of people are often on their phones or watching a TV, if it's a bar type setting or the like, and they're eating by themselves, or even if they're eating with others, they're on their phones. So they're not paying attention. And so what I'm trying to promote is this idea of paying attention. You enjoy your food more, you typically eat more slowly, and eating becomes a singular activity. Whether you're alone or if you're with others, you can enjoy together, and the eating is focused on that enjoyment and the conversation that might be based on what you're eating and how you're enjoying it. And it's the same thing, Dee, as your example with the wine. It's really taking a few moments to make eating a singular activity, to enjoy, to taste the food, to slow it down, and to just pay attention to what it is and what you've eaten. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, it takes a while to cultivate this habit. You yourself said it took you 6 months to cultivate a mindful eating habit. And I think about myself, I mindfully eat select foods. Like if I'm eating sushi, I'm more mindful than if I'm just like in a rush, just trying to fill my stomach if I'm super hungry. And as I think about that for my own practice, I'm like, okay, I should think about being mindful all the time with every time something goes into my mouth. Is that what you're recommending? And then if you are, like, maybe, first recognizing it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So what are the baby steps that we can actually take to get there? And then we have a question that we'll get to right after that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think that one of the things that mindful eating encompasses, and we didn't touch on this yet, but it's the idea of listening to your physical hunger and eating, listening to your body, of course, and eating until you're full. That's where this idea of weight management in the long run comes in. So you eat mindfully when you're hungry. You don't just eat to eat. And then the idea would be eating slowly and without distraction so that you can pay attention, to what you're eating. And again, I think that eating oftentimes is a joyful experience with others. So I'm not saying you necessarily need to eat alone and eat in silence. But what I am saying is that, you pay attention to the people you're with and to the food itself and enjoy the experience. And with that as well, for those who do have a lot of what I'll call binge eating or eating related to stress, really pay attention to your body and pay attention to your state of stress. And does that really make you hungry or not? And then, rather than grabbing and going, if you are hungry related to the stress, can you take a portion? For example, can you take a half a cup of nuts or a half a cup of pretzels, divvy it out rather than taking the whole bag of nuts and not paying attention. So it's that paying attention. It's that paying attention and knowing when you're hungry and when you're full. It's eating slowly and without significant distractions. And it's making eating kind of what I'll call a singular activity where the focus is on the eating and everything that eating and the food encompasses. And I think that folks, if they do this, will get a much joyful and pleasant experience out of their eating. And as well, for folks who might have a need to lose some weight, eating mindfully, again, has really been shown without restriction per se to be associated with some decent weight loss.
This is awesome. And I love the example of rationing the snacks, so not having open bags next to your desk while you're working, ration them, have smaller portions. If you are not mindful, at least you're not going to be, overeating or binging. We have a question here from the audience. Tamdin Kai is asking, playing basketball after a meal, how much gap should we have to keep? So he's basically asking how much time to wait after playing a sport to have a meal.
Camden, thanks for your question. I don't think you have to wait. It's more important to wait after you eat to play the sport than it is to have a meal after you play the sport, if that makes sense. In other words, after the sport, if you're hungry and you need, first of all, obviously you need to replenish your liquids, and water, of course, is probably the best way to do that. But then if you're hungry thereafter, usually 30 minutes or so, your body can settle down to a normal what we call a homeostatic balance, kind of baseline. It's reasonable to eat at that time. And, a lot of times once you have worked out fairly aggressively, you may not be as hungry as if you were just, in a situation where you're not exercising. So after vigorous exercise, I kind of recommend make sure you replenish your fluids, make sure your heart rate's down, make sure you feel, kind of back to baseline in 30 minutes or so. It's reasonable to eat a meal. I wouldn't eat a feast, but a meal is okay. On the flip side of that, just to take it a step further, what I was saying is that you don't want to exercise aggressively after eating a meal for at least an hour is kind of the usual rule. And depending on what you're doing, sometimes even 2 hours for more aggressive exercise is necessary. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tamdin, if you have a follow-on question, feel free to type it in. The other thing I want to remind everybody that's attending, we're going to do this series, maybe once a week at least, or maybe more frequently, or at least a few times a month. So I would love to sort of, have you guys set a baseline for your eating habits, in this first class. And then as we join the future classes, tell us if, your mindful eating habits are helping you be healthier, be more present, enjoy your food more. And if they're not, tell us as well, right? We'll learn together.
Yeah, and remember, for everybody, this is a practice. Mindfulness is a practice. Mindful eating is a practice. Meditation is a practice. There is no utopia, right? So in other words, we all have to do the best we can. And a couple of just pragmatic thoughts. For those who have difficulty with portion control, while it does cost a bit more, and I'm always, looking for those opportunities, obviously, to save resources, as I'm sure we all are. But if you have trouble with portion control, many vendors now, and I'm a big Trader Joe's and Whole Foods shopper, they portion it for you. So you can buy, for example, trail mix. I like trail mix, or the pretzel example, nut examples. You can buy your snacks with portion control. You can, look online, or we can discuss it in our next meeting about portions that you might want to put on your plate. And I think the portion control is important, but also importantly is just eating slowly, paying attention, and taking those cues as to when you're hungry and full. You eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full. And lastly, another thing just to keep in mind is to appreciate your food. Foster gratitude for the good food that you have. And, keep in mind as well, when you go out to eat, I find going out to eat very enjoyable, but I also notice at the end of going out, especially if you've got a few people with you, the bill nowadays is pretty high in so many restaurants. So, if you're going to gulp it down, you're not going to really enjoy it. So get your money's worth.
Very well said.
Back, enjoy the food, and make sure that you get your money's worth by enjoying the actual act of dining out, if you are indeed dining out, and just pay attention to all these things. And I think you will really find a more pleasurable experience of eating. And for those who might need to lose weight, you may see those pounds slowly start to come off.
That's awesome. And I know we're a little over time, but we'll keep going. This is a really good subject. We'll go for a few more minutes. There's another question that I want to read. I think you almost answered it. But before I read the question, for those attending, let us know what your favorite food is on the chat box. I would love to know what people eat, and I'll read it out for everybody. So here's the question. RuPaul is saying that she generally craves eating sweets and chocolates while she has severe headaches. And then she tends to overeat because the sweets help us relax the headache. So how can she avoid doing that?
So, RuPaul, I would say, first of all, you need to understand, if you don't already, what the nature of the headaches are. If you have severe headaches, I would suggest, if you haven't done this, to ensure that you have an understanding of why you have these headaches and that you've seen, a physician for them, because there are proper medications that can address headaches. I think if your headaches themselves are well addressed, then probably those cravings may go away. But I would suggest that food in general should not be, especially things like chocolate, a pacifier for headaches. So let's understand the nature of the headaches, have them treated properly, and then I would say addressing the food and the eating as a secondary thing to do.
That is very, very well said, Dr. Julie. I don't think anybody could have done better. Address the problem first, then get to the food. I think there's a second question from Shelja. I hope I'm saying your name right. And she's saying exactly the same thing. I eat a lot when I'm stressed out, mostly sweets. What do you suggest? So would you give a similar answer?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that we were talking about before for this one. We're very stressed as a society. And I think the more mindful we are in general, the less apt we are to be grabbing and going, grabbing the food. If you do need a snack, again, it's not all or nothing. So changing habits needs to be an experience that you can manage. So if you're used to a lot of stress eating, what I would suggest, if you can't manage this yourself, is to get a few snacks, maybe try healthier snacks. I like trail mix. I think it's a good one. Or fruit is another good one that you can have in portion control, and try to just eat one portion, and make sure you drink a lot of fluids. We also tend not to drink enough water. That will help satiate you. If we don't drink water or other non-caffeinated, non-sugared beverages, a lot of times we find ourselves more hungry. So portion control, try to get away from the sort of the massive quantities of sweets that you might tend to eat, and pay attention. And let's see if that habit doesn't begin to resolve. Again, it's not going to happen overnight, but slowly I believe you can overcome.
That's amazing. And I would say, RuPaul, Shelja, just when you come back to the next class, let us know if you tried portion control, because we challenge ourselves to do everything right every moment of the time. Portion control to me is, you don't have to challenge yourself if you can finish the bag or not. You just have a small portion. So you're giving yourself a benefit of doubt. I think, does that make sense, Dr. Julie? Like, by not giving you the option to binge, you do better anyway, right?
Right. I think that's true. And let me say something else about this binging type eating, eating too much. I don't want to use that word binge. I hesitate about, because, sometimes binge is truly characteristic of an eating disorder, but we all tend to grab, a lot of food. And one thing I wanted to say about healthy options is, I will say that my actually favorite foods to eat are berries. I love raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, and I eat them every day. And they're actually really good. not only are they good, they're good for you because they have a lot of antioxidants. So the reason I'm saying this is that sometimes we think that the foods that we only enjoy, you know, the foods that we can really enjoy are the ones that are bad for us, like the chocolates or the candy bars or the pretzels or the popcorn, when indeed there actually may be healthier options that you really can enjoy. So I enjoy my berries every day. Maybe I'm in the minority. If anyone else enjoys berries, let me know. But my point of this is that your go-to food does not have to be, you know, a very calorie dense food that you might otherwise restrict. Try other options, you know, that might bring you joy and bring you satiation.
Yeah, so like our chat box has blown up, so there's too many messages. I can't really like read them out. But the summary is people love pizza. So I'm seeing a lot of pizza. I like Belvin's comment. She says, I like to be conscious with my food, so mostly vegan. Feels good to her. Deborah is saying she loves this panel and she's talking about her habits as well. Her favorite is sushi. So a question I'll ask Dr. Julie, is the new pizza craze, which is the the cauliflower pizza, the non-carb pizza, is that a healthier choice, or what do you think about that?
I think in general, we need to pay attention. I think it may be a healthier choice. And by the way, I don't think pizza is bad. I think everything in moderation. So the cauliflower pizza, I think, is probably a bit healthier because it doesn't, you know, have the gluten or the heavy crust. But, you know, you can get thin crust pizza, of course. And I think the thing about the pizza, and the example, you know, that I can give is pizza has dairy and on it for the most part, unless you order a non-dairy pizza. And I think, you know, for folks that may not feel good eating this, how much did you eat? Do you have a problem with the dairy on the pizza? Because so many people do have problems with dairy. And then if you like these meat pizzas, just keep in mind that things like sausage and pepperoni and this and that, they're very, very calorie dense and they have a high component of fat. So one thing about mindful eating is like know what you're eating, you know? So if you enjoy this, if you like that calorie dense, lots of fat pizza, okay, but have one piece, don't have five. If the dairy is bothering you, if you can't eat cheese, but you love pizza, try the cauliflower pizza, no cheese. I'm one of those people who can't really eat dairy. It's evolved over time. And so, you know, I've kind of taken pizza out of my diet, but I still enjoy other similar pizza type things, like maybe a flatbread without the cheese, you know. So pay attention to what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad. And if you love pizza, by all means, eat pizza, but don't eat a whole pizza. Why don't you take a piece and maybe have some salad and enjoy that as well? And, you know, you might find that enjoyment and your ability to tolerate, to digest, and to not gain weight is much better.
I love it. And we're way over time. I love the comments from everybody, you know, a lot of really good stuff. So what I would love to do, Dr. Julie, maybe the next one we talked a bit about plant-based proteins. There's a big craze with Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger and all that. Maybe that would be a good thing to talk about. Why don't you just close us out with a few breaths, you know, just get us to a mindful state, and then we'll call it a day for this class.
Right. Well, thanks so much for joining, everyone. And why don't you take a seated position with your feet on the ground and erect spine, not stiff, but just erect, and chin level to the ground. And with me and with the gently close your eyes. And let's slow down together just for a moment, and keeping in mind that the practice of mindfulness and mindful eating does involve a bit of slowing down. And if you'll take a breath, beginning from your belly, up into your chest, gently hold that breath for a count of 3. And then relaxing and exhaling to another count of 3. Pause and notice how you feel without judgment. And we'll take one final breath to close us out. From the belly To a count of 3 up into the chest. And hold that breath. And then exhale to a count of 3. And gently open your eyes. Thanks again, Dee, for joining me, and everyone on the panel. I hope that you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be together again on Tuesday and Thursday with our mindfulness practice. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, everyone.